They've got him. Now what do they do with him? The capture of 19-year-old Dzhokhar Tsarnaev has revived the debate over how we deal with alleged terrorists in this country. Today, the White House made it very clear he will not be tried as an enemy combatant. It's a controversial move. I spoke earlier with John Ashcroft, former Attorney General to the Bush administration, about it. Attorney General Ashcroft, thanks so much for joining us today. If you were Attorney General right now, would you be recommending that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev be tried as an enemy combatant, or are criminal courts also okay with you?
Yes, the answer to that question is yes. Fortunately, there is a mountain of evidence that would support either a state charge or a federal charge in the Article III courts, meaning the traditional criminal jurisdiction courts. And the evidence is so substantial that it probably doesn't matter whether or not anything he would say now to interrogators would be used against him. He's already the focus of so much hard evidence that the business about Miranda warnings is probably a tempest in a teapot here.
You were Attorney General from 2001 through 2005. Based on your experience, how common is it for the Russian government to reach out to U.S. law enforcement and say, keep an eye on this person, we think he's a religious extremist, we think he might be up to no good? Does that happen a lot, or is it rare?
Now, I'm not in a position to say how many times any specific government has communicated to the United States government, but it's fair to say that whenever we got such communications, I think we wanted to take them very seriously.
In 2011, the FBI was informed by the Russian FSB, the successor organization to the KGB, that they were concerned about the older brother. The FBI says they looked into his communications, they interviewed him, they didn't find there to be anything that would pose a threat to public safety. And then the older brother went to Russia, we presume to Chechnya and Dagestan, according to anecdotal accounts, came back. Should the FBI have re-interviewed him after he came back?
They took the matter seriously when it first came up, and obviously there was a very serious concern that we can see in retrospect. And I would be particularly concerned about someone who visited an area like Chechnya, if that's in fact what happened, especially in the light of the fact that Chechnyan individuals have been involved in the war on terror pretty regularly against the United States in its operations overseas.
Talk about the precedents that might be relevant in this case against Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. You obviously were Attorney General for a number of them. Which do you see as being relevant and why?
There doesn't seem to be any precedent which would prohibit the prosecution of this individual based on state violations, federal violations, and if the president were to determine this individual an enemy combatant based on the facts, and if found out that he had been involved with part of the war against the United States by terrorists overseas, and could properly come to a conclusion that he's an enemy combatant, then he might be adjudicated as a war criminal who violated the law of war, and he could be, that matter could be tried by a military commission.
Lastly, Attorney General Ashcroft, based on what we know, do you think the FBI should have sought a FISA warrant so they could have electronically monitored Tamerlan Tsarnaev? And do you think in any way that this was an intelligence failure and a failure by the FBI, given that they had been warned about him?
Anytime we have a situation like this, we should take a careful look to see if there are ways that we could improve our performance. And if we had been able to intercept or interdict this operation at any point in the process, lives could have been saved. If we had been able to prevent it totally, we would have saved lives and the maiming of a lot of innocent people. But even after the bomb was originally detonated, if we could have somehow been able to interrupt this prior to the killing of the MIT police officer.
Attorney General John Ashcroft, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.